very long while. And it's mainly because I think that the base metal of Obama is pragmatic. I mean, I don't think he starts with ideals and then compromises them down, which is where most of a great many of his supporters start from. I think he starts from power. He understands that to succeed, you begin with power, and everything you do is about power. And I think you need to do that, particularly in American politics. You know, the left is very disappointed with him, but for what reason, I don't entirely understand. I don't know how he was going to get a public option through on the health bill. He barely got through a Republican option on the health bill. So why would you be carrying on about the public option? I mean, in some ways, the answer to the question is we don't know yet. It's a story that's unfolding, as they say on the media, whether he can or he can't. But I don't think he's done too badly. And I think also this, it always seems to me that America is in a, you know, Elias Canetti said that democratic politics, this is roughly paraphrasing, democratic politics is the Civil War continued but they've renounced the killing. And in a way that's sort of cutely true in most advanced democracies, but in America it seems palpably true. And they haven't quite renounced the killing. And the Civil War itself continues for an eighth of the population who never got their just desert. And it continued, the Frontier War continues. In a way, Bush was a continuation of the Frontier War. Palin's a continuation of the Frontier War. The Revolutionary War continues in the Tea Parties. The white trash who provided the cannon fodder for the Civil War still alive and well and galloping through the hills. And in a way, Obama's, as somebody said, his preternatural calm is precisely what the country needs. And I think in a way that's why they voted for him. A lot of people voted for him, that not because he was an idealist, he never presented himself in that way, really, but because he offered some alternative to the war in a sort of Hobbesian sense. He was the person who provided the assurance that the war would not break out.
Don, that I think, I'm shuffling my notes here because I wanted to read a couple of quotations and get your reactions, the panel's reactions to them from some prominent journalists of late. And this question about who is Obama, is he a pragmatist, idealist, etc., is obviously one that a lot of people are concerned about. Remnick is concerned about it too in his biography. So I want to read you a quotation that I'm going to put under the header, Obama as human Rorschach test, what you see in him, whatever you want to see. And this is from Frank Rich in the New York Times in April. Christopher, perhaps you could react to it. Depending on where you stand or the given day, he is either an over-intellectual professorial wuss or a ruthless Chicago machine pole rivaling the original Boss Daley. He's either a socialist redistributing wealth to the undeserving poor or a tool of the Wall Street Goldman Sachs elite. He is a terrorist coddling, ACLU tilting lawyer or the closet Cheneyite upholding the worst excesses of the Bush administration's end run on the Constitution. He's a lightweight celebrity who's clueless without a teleprompter or a Machiavellian mastermind who has ingeniously forged his Hawaiian birth certificate, covered up his ties to Islamic radicals and bamboozled the entire mainstream press. He's the reincarnation of JFK, LBJ, FDR, Reagan, Hitler, Stalin, Adlai Stevenson, or Nelson Mandela. Who is Obamable? Is he knowable or unknowable? And is it a plus or a minus to his presidency that people still don't think they know who the president is?
Well, to paraphrase something once said by Penelope Gilliard, one of the classic sounds of the New York Sunday morning is that of Frank Rich barking up the wrong tree. In this case, every tree in sight. Obama is not center-left, but he's left of center. He's never pretended to be anything else. His single most attractive quality, I think, is the belief in his own luck. You remember that was what Bonaparte thought was the only qualification for generalship. Is he lucky? Obama knows he's been fantastically fortunate. Everyone in Chicago got out of his way. either by mortgaging their wives on eBay or being caught leaving the wrong club, or they just all running against him, as the black Republican Alan Keyes did, on the grounds that he, Obama, wasn't really black because he wasn't a descendant of slaves. He was an African. When you get that from the Republican black candidate, you know you're lucky. And Obama knows that about himself. The question is, how long is this luck going to hold? I'll give you an example that everyone will remember, perhaps when I mention it, but because of him, his own qualities, has generally been forgotten. You'll recall that an American ship was taken by pirates off Somalia when the president had been in office about 3 months. And someone must have gone to him and said, well, Mr. President, we can either have a hostage standoff negotiation with these people, or we can take it to the United Nations and appeal to the government, such as it is of Somalia, and protract the situation in that way, or we can send the Navy SEALs and tell them to do 4 headshots, there were 4 kidnappers, and bring the ship back. And he must have said the third option is obviously the best one, because the Navy SEALs delivered 4 headshots, just 4. It was all over, and the ship and the crew and the passengers were all back in a few days. Now, that must have taken some nerve in the first few weeks, and it could all have gone fantastically wrong, as every other policy towards Somalia always has. Why isn't it famous? Why isn't it better known about him? Because what would Reagan have done if he'd done that? You'd never have heard the end of it. There had been a big speech saying, USA, USA, we're number one. They can run, but they can't hide. And all that nonsense. Obama didn't boast about it for a second. He basically thought, those who need to know have got the message, and I don't need to brag about it. That I thought was very impressive. That's why I believe, and have written ever since he began running for the nomination, that those who vote for him because they're members of MoveOn.org, who've already proved themselves to be stupid, are stupid twice because they're voting for someone who absolutely doesn't represent or stand for anything that they believe.
So is this humility as charisma? Don, you're pretty good on these personal...
On humility.
You have a lot of it going around and you write about it eloquently. So humility as charisma? Christopher's just said that, that there's something fundamentally wrong about the Obama hype, because everything we see about the guy is about discipline, quiet discipline, pragmatism, all the things one might associate with someone with his academic pedigree, but not what you'd associate with this walk-on-water political candidate who can inspire people all around the world.
No, I think, the reassuring thing about him, I think, is that he's so calculating, and his instincts are very good about when he ought to when not to overplay something. To give you an example, it was galling to see, I'm sure for lots of people left of centre or even right of centre, to see that he decided that he'd solved the great financial meltdown with the people who were largely responsible for it. This was hard to stomach. But then I don't know quite where I read it, but someone pointed out very sensibly that, in a way, if you're dealing with the markets, you're not dealing with a political problem, you're dealing with a market, and a market doesn't think long. A market is concerned that the right people are in the right places, a market's concerned with belief. So if you put Joseph Stiglitz in there, that might make everyone feel better on the left, but it actually won't make the market feel better. They'll feel better if Paulson's there. And in a way, that seems to me quite an astute calculation by Obama, and makes... I think, it was funny that Team of Rivals book came out at the same time as he was running, and it couldn't have been better for him, in a way, because it looked like a Lincolnian moment when you really had to step across to the other side. You couldn't win without doing that. And by stepping across, he confused everybody, which is, I think, a way he operates too. But I think those sorts of calculations are reasons for confidence with him, that he's actually one step ahead of the left who support him all the time. I know Christopher would say that's not hard. But a lot of people can't do it consistently like he does.
Okay, so I think the marks thus far are going pretty strongly in the president's favour. It's just a different Barack Obama maybe than some stereotypes that have prominence. Anne, could I shift to how it's going in terms of global perceptions of the United States? You've been in Washington for a while now. You're back in Sydney. Let me just read a couple of pretty stunning statistics from opinion polls. We can take them with as many helpings of salt as we want. But Pew Global Survey, 2008, in only three of the 23 countries that Pew surveyed, was half the population confident about George W. Bush, 3 out of 23.